So yes, I will say it, I am big worried for the future of Chainsaw Man. Not in a bad way, but in a I don't know what to expect type of way. And with how this chapter came to a conclusion, we're leading to that point. On the contrary to expecting high octane action, I love these type of chapters. The slow, methodical conversation between two characters type of beat that I inherently enjoy from start to finish. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea or up everyone's alley, but there's something very personal, something very intimate, and overall relatable to how these characters interact with one another. It feels natural and compelling and something that you can understand extremely well. A lot of the time it is pushed with Asa, and I think Fujimoto has done a brilliant job into making her the main character that she is. To add on top of that, she hasn't taken away anything from Denji or any other character. She hasn't cannibalized a similar theme or structure. If anything, even though you can say that she is the female counterpart to Denji, they're still very much different and have a uniqueness to themselves that's valuable. See, the reason why I mention this is because of this chapter and its approach to Asa. It is incredibly relatable, incredibly understandable, and something that is thought-provoking. You get to see a deep dive into her mental and emotional state while she flips back and forth between how to approach certain people, words, and just ideas or values within her own head or heart. Understanding something like that while having it come across naturally and not forced down your throat, I think is a difficult task. I would say a lot of authors may struggle with this or take a lot more convenient or easier routes to reach a similar goal. But because Fujimoto is able to sit here within the moment and not dictate an entire chapter to dropping action at some point or building it in a way where it's anticipating an event, it's none of that. He can just sit here and take it all in, and for us as readers, that's what we get. See, basically what I've talked about is the conversation that we get in this chapter between Asa and Yoshida. It is a little bit off, mostly because Yoshida is a weird guy. He comes off a little bit creepy, and I would say the pressure that he has within this chapter is a little bit more than usual. Somewhat akin to a threat, but not something as destructive. Self-inserted warning, I would say. See, he goes out of his way to approach Asa to tell her one thing, to stop hanging out with Denji, to leave him alone, don't go anywhere near him, and she can interpret that however she wants. However, prior to mentioning Denji, he talks about relationships. He talks about there being no guarantees within building a permanent, mutual, agreeable relationship. He talks about the solitary life is less risky, and it's coming off as very convincing in a way, and so much so that Asa feels that her values are being confirmed, that they're being appreciated and at least acknowledged in a way that she values, or at least within a way that strengthens her own. And the reason why he even mentions any of this is because of Asa's self-reflection in the previous chapter. The question I had, is this something he genuinely believes, or is it just Yoshida playing the game? Obviously he wants people that aren't related to Denji, that have no reason to be near Denji, away from him. He does quite a bit of mental gymnastics or leaps in logic to really affirm Asa's values, and she even kind of gets giddy about it. She's like, oh my god, he likes me. He's going to confess, he's going to do something. Maybe it's because I asked him out the first time I met him and he rejected me, now he's coming full circle. Nothing to do with that, but it goes to show her overthinking, and I love that. She tends to overthink every single situation, every single emotion, and really gets caught up within her own head and then disappointed when that outcome doesn't actually come true. Again, is Yoshida really perceptive and just playing the game, or does he partially agree with being on your own is a lot easier? For me personally, it's hard to believe that he's not playing the game, because when you frame it with him saying that I want you to stay away from Denji, I'm not going to explain why, but you can interpret it however you want, and then just leaves, almost like he's never going to see her again or never show her any sort of attention ever again, makes me believe it to be so. That this was the right time to do it, get within her head, and elevated the idea of a solitary life, that being alone is worthwhile and you don't have to take that many risks. The funniest thing about everything that Yoshida mentioned is that it goes against what Asa actually is, how she approaches people in general and the true connection that she wants. See, I would argue that Denji is the only person gotten the most genuine response from her, genuine feelings, genuine mindsets or attitudes, and has seen her at her most comfortable, rawest, angriest, whatever it may be. All of these emotions are true. They are well defined. They are part of her core character and her being, so you should never close or want to close those off. You want to be true to yourself, right? You want to be happy and be able to express express all the emotions that you have and not just some of them. And Denji has been the only person to be able to reach down into there and do it. A great way that you can see this within their conversations is her getting really, really angry. Deep down, she is a pretty angry person, and it's not anything to do with her attitude, but more so her trauma, what she's been through. The fact that she's been bullied, the fact that she's had no friends, the fact that she can't digest or talk or express how she feels naturally because she has so much anxiety. So when you have all of these things just piling onto each other, you can't escape it. You can never express anything, and you're kind of just this black hole until someone comes along and is able to pull the best and worst out of you. It's very much scary, but very much powerful and important and healthy. That is why I love and support the relationship that Denji and Asa have, and I hope in some way, shape or form that it continues. Even though that outcome is not looking good, maybe we can redirect back into there eventually. We can all thank Naruto for that one. Speaking of Naruto, we actually get to see her vibing with Denji, who's not vibing, he's actually depressed. He's just slump on the floor at this point, has no energy to do anything. But Naruto does say something rather peculiar, which is most likely going to bleed into the next chapter and the event that's about to go down in terms of smelling something nasty. It's the nastiest devil scent she has ever smelled. Now my very first thought is famine. If it's not war, maybe famine is doing something or planning an event that is currently building up over time. She seems currently the most problematic into intruding into the story and trying to shake it up a lot more, and even though we just got out of the aquarium, I wouldn't be surprised if she tried again. Her target, however, at the moment isn't Chainsaw Man, it's Yoru and Asa, and with how the ending of this chapter comes to be, kind of lines up a little bit well. On the other hand, it could just be a random devil that's pretty powerful, but the nastiest that Naruto's ever smelled, there's definitely a lot more here. I love this little conversation between these two. It's very cute, family-like. She tries to get him up to go devil hunting by slapping him. It's wholesome, but Denji's response is anything but that. He is out of it, depressed. That kind of infamous blank Denji expression that he's wore the entirety of part 2, this is the blankest it's ever been. He doesn't feel like being Chainsaw Man anymore. He has no motivation. But now it's clicked. He's seen the result, but Naruto will block it anyway. Her response to this, a little bit of a tantrum. She gets very angry. She just wants to watch him be Chainsaw Man and watch him fight. So obviously she has an affinity for that, and it most likely comes from Makima's affinity for Chainsaw Man. Infatuation that Makima had has most likely seeped over into Naruto, where she now shares it, but in a way that is more so entertainment. She seems obsessed, almost like she would backstep her own decisions so she could continue watching Denji be Chainsaw Man and fight. So much so, in fact, that she tries to convince Denji that if you continue to fight as Chainsaw Man, you could get way more love than any girlfriend could provide you. Of course, he wants to think it over and get some dead blank expressions, and then he agrees, which from what we know is not the best idea for him, mostly because the more famous and loved he becomes, the weaker he should technically get. We don't know how weak he is currently, or if it's affecting him majorly, but it should be there partially. Now, with what Naruto is trying to spin within his head, it's most likely going to get more severe. Also, the idea of Naruto enjoying herself watching Chainsaw Man fight is kind of funny to me. It's kind of like a family outing. Last but not least, the beautiful monologue from Asa, basically deciphering and trying to understand her own mental state. And she goes through the hurdles. It's just a whole lot of guilt and anxiety and depression and so much past experiences coming through and devouring her self-confidence. Even Yoru can't do anything to help her, thinking that she's being way too down on herself. It gets to a point where Asa believes that she would be better off dead, that she's just tired, that she can't have a lasting relationship with another human being. And while there is difficulties there or hurdles, I don't think those hurdles were placed by just herself. Again, going back to her past, what she's experienced, how she navigates through her emotions, everything is very fickle and flippant in approach. And if that stuff is never healed or talked about, or no one to lean on, or even just express how you feel, maybe it's even minimalized by yourself, maybe it's minimalized by others, it becomes very much toxic. And you are seeing exactly that. Unfortunately, it never leads to a good place, and Asa kind of reached her end. This gets very rudely interrupted by someone falling off a building and dying right in front of her. But before she can even react to that, Yoru takes over her body because something is very much wrong. And the last panel you get is this very eerie and creepy building complex with a bunch of people standing on their balconies looking down at Asa. At least now Yoru is somewhat prepared. With what weapon? I don't know, but I do believe this may be famine. Even though this is the end, the last thing that I want to mention is probably the most important. Denji rocking up to this scene and fighting whatever this devil is, potentially with Asa, would be very entertaining. Not because of the action itself, because that's always going to be great, but because of what was just told to both of them from different angles. Naoyuta said no to Asa, do not have anything to do with her, and then Yoshida just told Asa, don't go anywhere near Denji. Yet if Denji does rock up as Chainsaw Man, I think you will see that they are already inherently connected, whether they know it or not, and they will equally challenge whatever difficulties or hurdles are put on top of them from other people, so they can be happy, so they can make their own choices to be happy. I am very much excited, but I do want to hear all of your thoughts on this chapter and where you think it's going to go right now. Thank you.